The Frank G. Zarb School of Business and WRHU-FM Radio Hofstra University invite you inside the Z-Suite.
Hello, I'm Janet Lenihan, Dean of the Frank G. Zarb School of Business at Hofstra University. Welcome inside the Z-Suite, featuring current topics and talks with business leaders across every industry. From organic food to fitness, the global health and wellness industry has become big business over recent years, with no signs of slowing. According to a report by McKinsey & Company, the consumer market value rose to a staggering $5.5 trillion in 2023 and is expected to reach $14 trillion by 2032, as more people continue to recognize the importance of wellness and healthy lifestyle choices. What are the trends that are driving market growth in this area? How is the industry regulated? And how do we choose the right product or service as consumers? These are just a few of the questions we'll be covering with consumer market expert and business leader Ellen Deutsch Harrison, Chief Strategy Officer at Nutrishus Brands, who will share her background and insights about the health and wellness market. Ellen brings over 20 years of executive management experience to our conversation, which includes overseeing the operations of a fast-paced public company upon its initial public offering and directing domestic and global business across multiple consumer categories, such as grocery, beverage, snacks, perishables, proteins, personal care, and household products. Named to the Long Island Business Hall of Fame, Ellen earned an MBA and a BBA right here at the Zarb School of Business at Hofstra University, where she currently serves as an adjunct professor and an executive residence. She is also a recipient of the Hofstra University Distinguished Alumni Award. Ellen, welcome inside the Z-Suite.
Thank you so much, Janet.
So let's start. As I mentioned in the beginning, this industry has just ballooned and continues to surge. In your experience, at what point did the consumer interest in healthy living really start to gain momentum, and what factors contributed to the rise?
It's not a new industry, and it emerged after a time when processed foods were really coming into vogue, starting really in the 50s and 60s, at least the way we think of healthier foods and products today. The fitness wave came a bit later and became much more about lifestyle, and it's evolving to this day, which we see in different market segments and different population groups. But we all want to live longer. We all want to live more healthfully. How we treat ourselves, our diet, our exercise is paramount to living longer. And I think that has become a great goal even among young people who look at it a little bit differently, but it is definitely continuing to propel the growth of the industry.
It's interesting you say young people look at it differently. Mm-hmm. How do demographics, age, gender, socioeconomic class, how does that impact the trends in this industry?
It impacts in multiple ways. And let's start, for example, talking about millennials. Whereas perhaps their parents were more concerned about natural and organic, they're more concerned about efficacy. They're concerned about, the clinical aspects of what they do, whether it's the foods they eat or their exercise. So their purchase behavior leans more in that direction, as opposed to, not that it's not important to fixate on what you're actually consuming and buying and ingredients and sourcing and so forth. But it's more about, is this going to help me live better, live stronger, live longer? So the focus is just very slightly different, and it ties into an overall lifestyle as opposed to just, let's say, food choices.
What about socioeconomic status? Mm-hmm. I mean, we hear a lot about food deserts in certain areas of our nation where people that perhaps are, living at the poverty line really can't afford some of these organic or healthy lifestyle choices.
Before you even get to the economics of product cost, the issue of food deserts is really a retail issue, and we see the changing retail landscape and how it's evolved. Some of it due to socioeconomics. Obviously, e-commerce has had a huge impact. And the problem with food deserts is that operators are not coming to areas that are underserved. We need to get more operators. I was involved with the New York State Food Policy Council some time ago. That was one of the biggest concerns, was providing incentives for good operators to come into these areas and make better choices available. So it starts with availability, and certainly e-commerce has had a great effect, and different retail segments have evolved that I think have made that a bit easier. As far as cost is concerned, and we've all seen the escalation inflation in food prices and the inflation over the last few years, which is the worst I've really seen it, there has been a difference in the costs of, let's say, processed foods versus things that are more natural and organic, with the latter being more costly. So there definitely is an effect that if you have more disposable income, you can be more choosy. It doesn't mean there aren't lower cost alternatives to choose from. It just may take a little bit more knowledge and education, which unfortunately may also be lacking among social groups that are struggling economically. So I think the industry needs to do a better job of availability in some areas, although I think that has dramatically improved. And then the idea that people spend disposable income as they see fit. And it's not only on terms of food deserts and what they can buy, but do they exercise? Are there other wellness aspects to their life that are important? Everything from vitamin supplements, even to externals like their beauty and healthcare, because we've learned that a lot of beauty and healthcare products have some nasty things in them that aren't really good topically either. So to answer your initial question, yes, there are differences in socioeconomics, some of it due to scarcity, some of it due to choice. And then there are certainly differences in age groups as far as what propels the interest. If you look at baby boomers, and they have the most disposable income, very concerned about longevity, concerned about weight, concerned about not contracting diabetes and other illnesses, we would prefer to eat, not treat. And so if you eat properly to begin with, then maybe you don't need some of the pharmaceuticals, unfortunately. And they have a place, they're very important. But I think the proactive side of trying to avoid that necessity has become much more important to older members of the population.
Fascinating. And a lot of things I want to unpack there, but let's start with going back to the industry, right? That it's an accessibility problem. Can you talk a little bit about, how many new products are emerging in this market? It seems like every time you turn around, there's a new product that's out that's a wellness product or a health product. And different retail outlets are now getting into health and wellness in a larger way. So talk a little bit more kind of globally about the industry.
First, with regard to new products are the lifeblood of every industry. When I was at Hain Celestial, everything was really about being, a first mover and introducing products that were, critical to the market. That will never change. I think there is still a huge appetite for new products. One of the products I'm involved with now, the brand is called RX Sugar, and it uses allulose, which is another naturally occurring sugar that metabolizes and does not cause insulin spikes the way, other types of sweeteners can. And so I think there are better alternatives that are sought, and they lead the way for new product development, getting back again to the millennial cycle of wanting things to really work. So it's not enough that it's good for me. Is this going to do something good for me, and understanding that? So I think there's a tremendous amount of runway that is still available to us to develop new innovative products that will meet needs on many, many different levels. And keep in mind, it's not just about products, it's about services, exercise, things that make you feel better, like, going for massages and other personal care. All of that tends to lead to wellness of mind, body, and soul. So if you parse that, certainly what you either put into your body or put on your body has a tremendous effect on your overall health and well-being. You can't overstate the importance of movement and exercise. We see this with children, where we say we want to try to limit screen time. We want to get them back outside. Very, very critical. Childhood obesity is something that has been, under the microscope for decades now. I think there's been some progress, but probably not enough. Often it's because of the speed needed to serve a meal, and food prep takes time, but making sure that children develop good eating habits at a young age. I have a young grandson, got to give him a plug, Dylan.
Of course, absolutely.
And I know, what he eats and consumes and how he exercises is of critical importance in his development and in the way that he is being raised. And that can't be overstated, because I think those habits do develop at very young ages. And so you don't want to keep feeding this, no pun intended, issue of children not having that magic of good nutrition and good exercise and good wellness choices, for themselves. And then hopefully they can carry that into older years as well. So there's great runway for new products. The intersection not only of what you eat and consume and put on your body, but your habits and your lifestyle choices and making really smart decisions. And then the idea of we have so much data. We have so much that we can do for biometrics now. And this relates to what's happening in artificial intelligence and how we get a little bit more customized. There's a tremendous amount of data that we can learn about ourselves to hopefully improve our habits, improve our food consumption, our exercise. Whatever it is we feel is going to make us healthier has now become much more granular. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And again, I think as new products are introduced, if they're going to succeed, they need to not just do what everyone else is doing and saying, but have very specific reasons. And enjoyment is still a big part of it. We still only eat what we like. So we can't forget that it's not only about what's good for you, but it's what you enjoy. And if you can get real magic putting that together, your business can really take off.
So I think all of us, right, have fallen victim to fads around health and wellness. I mean, I think I spent a week of only eating grapefruits because the grapefruit diet, I was going to lose all this weight, right? In some aspects, I think, has even grown that influence because of TikTok and social media, where people are doling out health and wellness advice that have absolutely no backing in scientific data and evidence, and yet they're trending. So how can consumers become more educated around what really makes for a healthy food or a healthy alternative?
There is so much information that is coming to all of us at all times, and not all of it from credible sources. So the first thing you have to do is consider the source. Why is this person trustworthy? You may be listening to their podcast or reading something that they published or put out on TikTok or in social media. What expertise do they have that lends credibility, as opposed to there's an aspirational aspect that you see this person, you want to be like them, so you want to do what they're doing. And there's a little bit of a danger in that because it cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution. So the proliferation of information sources has definitely contributed, I think, to misinformation. The consumer, the person, has to have the desire to peel the layers away in terms of credibility, whether it's something that's actionable, whether or not it's something that will personally work for them, because all of our bodies and habits and lifestyles are different. Even something like sleep deprivation, and we look at wellness and we look at sleep and the number of businesses that are springing up to encourage us to get proper sleep. All of those factors must work together in the health and wellness sector, and you're combining a lot of different industries, from packaged goods to wellness services to beauty care, and they all have an intersection, and that formula, that puzzle of what works for each individual person is very individual. I think as soon as someone has a problem, what do they want to do? They want to search the internet. They want to see what's out there. There is misinformation. We have not advanced enough to try to control the information that is disseminated as to its validity and as to its source. People are free to give their opinions. Hopefully, over time, we will learn to be more discerning as to whose opinions we actually listen to, and listen to our own bodies and do what's best for them. So there's no shortage of supply. There's no shortage of expertise. There's no shortage of wellness centers. There's no shortage of physicians, for that matter, nutritionists, other experts in their fields. And again, the shopping, so to speak, and the journey that any consumer has trying to find those answers will vary significantly from person to person based on what their interest is. Certainly, weight loss continues to be a theme. And we've seen now that there are approved weight management drugs. They can be very effective because, again, they may suppress insulin response the same way the allulose I mentioned before has a very similar type of effect. So you may choose, I really need this pharmaceutical to help me, or you may say, I'm disciplined enough that I'm going to find foods that do this. And again, that's where AI can come in and help you really customize a solution that's best for you. So I think that there is still tremendous development that is happening in the marketplace and in terms of the types of products and services and offerings that are out there. Even with telehealth now, you can find a telehealth specialist to help you. Most insurance companies provide it. So whether it's for your mental health, your physical health, weight management, nutrition, children, there's a wealth of very well documented information where you don't have to go to someone with 30 seconds on TikTok to get an opinion. There are credible ways of doing that. And I think sometimes as consumers mature, they become a little bit more discerning in terms of who they listen to. But circling back to that, since we know that among younger consumers, they are concerned with effectiveness. They are concerned that what they do is really going to work. Well, that should hopefully motivate you to get your information from a very credible source.
That's so important, absolutely so important. But so is AI. And it's interesting now, you've mentioned that a few times. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's just changing every industry and really every role within organizations is going to be impacted by AI. So can you talk a little bit about the personalization that AI is going to allow to happen in the health and wellness industry? And why do you think that is going to drive future growth in the industry?
It's fascinating, and I think marketing is certainly one of the areas that AI is most applicable to. Whether you're looking at it from the corporate perspective of driving revenue, or you're looking at it from the perspective of perhaps being more efficient, or you're looking at it from how do I customize this? All of those are very different areas, and they all have different aspects of artificial intelligence that are applicable. So the first part is that we all want what's right specifically for us. And again, there is that journey that every person has, every consumer has when they start looking for purchasing. Artificial intelligence gives marketers the way to identify and influence and push people along on journeys, on things that they might be interested in, and then allow them to customize the solution that's right for them. And smart marketers are going to take strong advantage of that. The other side is the data analytics, because the more marketers can look at AI and all the tremendous amount of data that is received, that data can then be parsed to develop more effective marketing, media, communication, even product solution strategies at a much more in-depth and rapid rate than perhaps we were ever able to do before. So AI, I think, in some ways can give us efficiency. It can also give us effectiveness. If you can put both of those together, that's a really winning combination. So I think for marketers, it's not only about chat and bots and having better communication because your customer asks a question and AI immediately crafts a really targeted response. The information has to be there, kind of to begin with. And that's a responsibility to make sure that your answers come out the way that you want them to. So I think the influence is still at a very, very early stage. For companies that want to have greater effectiveness, certainly make their employees much more efficient than they've been able to be, have better customer communication that is streamlined and effective, keeping in mind that customers still do want a personal touch. So if it's a little too robotic, that may be a bit of a turnoff. I think there has to be a balance, and every company and product and brand has to define that for themselves to say, how much of this can we really program for the efficiency and personalization, and how much do we not want to lose our identity and how we embed that identity into what our communications are. The analytical side of it is what you do within your organization to, again, analyze this data, parse the data, identify your best prospects, influence those prospects, and then keep them engaged with you. You have to have great content to begin with. And then what happens in the conversation from there may be a mix of some human and AI. That mix is going to be different for every business, but any company that is ignoring AI is kind of doing so at their own, jeopardizing themselves, because they're going to be competitively deficient. They may not be as efficient as other companies that make good use of it. And if they really become expert, I think the advantage of understanding their customers better and then being able to motivate and continue a journey with those customers is going to be of tremendous competitive advantage.
I'm sure you've heard the saying, right? You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI, right? And it's so true, right? I think that's true of organizations as well. It's fascinating to think that universally we'll probably start to see all kind of marketers using AI to drive those personal messages, right? So we as consumers will probably be bombarded even more with different health and wellness products. How is the industry regulated? Is there a way for consumers to really educate themselves so they get an understanding of not just, is this person credible, but is the evidence that's on the vitamin bottle, right? Is it real?
That has been a struggle for many years, vitamins being a great example where making claims for vitamins are extremely difficult. There is regulation. DSHEA came out for vitamins, 30, 40 years ago, in terms of what claims can be made in terms of the efficacy of what you are taking. And even physicians don't always necessarily agree or are expert in things like supplementation. So there is certainly regulation, but it's very difficult when someone has an opinion and it is stated as such. And especially knowing that millennials want to know that this is going to work, that if you are making a statement of efficacy and it is your opinion, you still need to be very careful that you're not saying FDA and making claims that the FDA does not allow. And you can't use the FDA or any agency as an endorser. You cannot mention them. You just have to simply, follow what the regulations are. Regulations can be strict in things that are emerging. Sometimes the regulations take some time to catch up. The government agencies do expect industries to regulate themselves. So there's two separate issues. One is, what is fact-based? What is clinical? What can you truly make a representation for? Do you have clinical studies? So that if an educated consumer says, wow, I would love to try this, is it really going to work for me? That's where AI can get into much more customization for them, which is very different. But unfortunately, there is misinformation out there. There are consumer watch groups. There are other experts that come out and say, don't trust this. There's always going to be this give and take and back and forth. There are still debates about the benefits of whether you really need organic foods and products, and is that really better for you? And it's interesting, baby food is always one of the categories that tends to boom with organics because people want to protect their children's health. So there's an aura that it's better. To your point before about pricing, before I spend all that extra money, I want to know that it's better. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's more important for certain categories than others. So it's a life journey to have the education. We all have responsibilities, and if you subscribe to good corporate governance, good corporate ethics, you don't want to go outside those boundaries. You want credibility, you want trust, you want continuity of business. So, you want to start doing snake oil stuff and putting, claims out there. At some point, I believe it catches up, whether it's a watchdog group or it just doesn't work, or it becomes a government agency, which is kind of like the worst case scenario. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
So is there any advice you have for consumers? I'm in the supermarket and I'm going down the aisle and there are literally a plethora of different choices that say organic and it's going to do this, it's going to do, the other thing for you. Anything you can give in terms of tips for consumers to really understand what they're looking at and not fall victim to sexy advertising?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it depends on what they're looking for. We went through a craze where everything had to be fat-free. Now people are much more sensitive about sugar consumption, and you can see the way marketers are responding by having zero sugar products in various ways out there, whether because they use a plant-based sweetener or some other type of non-nutritive alternative. Consumer watch-outs change, and they are different for different people. We've seen the boom in gluten-free, which is still only a relatively small segments of the population in terms of who is truly celiac, but gluten-free is definitely something that's there. So for consumers who are worried about fat content, or we should say unhealthy fat content, because we all need healthy fats in our diet, or they're concerned about carbs, or they're concerned about too much sugar. When I first joined Hain, the first campaign I ever did for them basically was go out and read labels. The best thing you can do to educate yourself is read labels. And we have companies that say our products only have 5 ingredients in them, and you can pronounce all of them. That's a great key. That's a great key to know that if you want simplicity in your foods, the minute you see the word artificial, if you don't want artificial ingredients, for some people, they may not mind that, others do. There's always different schools of thought and new studies that come out all the time about what is good and what is not good for you. Artificial flavors and colors have been linked to ADHD in children in many studies. Think about how many children's products have artificial flavors and colors. If you are a new parent, and we've talked about new parents are vigilant about what they give their kids, you want to read those labels and make sure that maybe you're not buying something organic, but you want to make sure it's not loaded with saturated fat. You want to make sure it doesn't have potentially artificial colors and flavors if that's something that concerns you. You can self-educate by simply reading, because certain sections of the store just have so many different choices and sound-alike claims. And it's like any other journey you go on, you need to put a little bit of effort and maybe not just read the big screaming button that says, zero sugar, but then it has other bad stuff in it. That's why I think, again, AI will be helpful, because there will be and there already is methods that you can check things and say, I don't want gluten-free, what are my choices? And you can get that, and there are gluten-free associations that have lists of what you can buy. So you can self-educate, and the minute someone isn't well or has a child, we know that's when they start doing research, or if it's because you want to lose weight, or because you want to have better skin, or you want to do some muscle toning. There's so much information, and the combination of how you use those elements to your overall wellness is going to vary by person, and the more personalized it is, the more appealing it becomes.
Ellen, that's great advice. And I could keep asking you many, many more questions. But inside the Z-Suite, we have a little tradition in the Bernard Pivot style of questions where I just want you to answer right off the top of your head, whatever comes to mind when I ask you these questions. You ready?
Sure.
All right. If you could trade places with anyone or anything, who, what would it be, and why?
I honestly don't think I would. I think we all have aspirations, and you should have aspirations forever. I truly believe in work-life balance, and it's not the question of having it all or, expressions like that. I think that for me, I knew what I wanted to accomplish. It's always family first, and having, a good career and having a good balance. I'm kind of happy where I am. I think there are always role models for you. I think one of the problems we have now is that we don't have enough role models. We don't have enough people out there saying the right things, and I'm not trying to be political, but I do believe that there is integrity, and we should aspire to emulate people whom we respect. For me, I look at people who I respect, whether they're business leaders, political leaders, and I try to pull in a little bit from each one of them. So aside from, there was a time I really wanted to be a classical pianist and was jealous of every pianist out there. I don't know that there's someone specifically that I would want to change, but there are people that I really respect and respect professionally who, don't lose sight of good, whether you want to call it, ESG and good environmental social governance. You want to work in companies that care about employees. You want to aspire to be better. So I know that's a little bit of a loaded question, but I think I take pieces from people that I admire as opposed to just saying, I wish I could be them. And so other than, we all want to be thinner and everything else, yeah. But, I think you have to always be happy where you are and be on a journey that gets you, even more to whom you want to be.
I think that is a terrific response. So I have another one for you.
Uh-oh.
What is your favorite work or household chore?
Oh, goodness. I hope my children don't hear this. Because they probably won't believe it. I'm really not good at it, but I do like to cook. And with work-life balance, I don't know that I've had the time. I've actually gotten better at baking, but my cooking skills, that's something I'm still aspiring to, that I do like it. I'm just not terribly good at it, and I'm a bit of a clean freak, so it doesn't always fit together, but I would really love to be able to prepare better food, and maybe then, I'd be able to feed people more often without bringing in food from somewhere else.
That's great. Well, what's your least favorite chore to do around the house?
Probably laundry.
The never-ending.
The
right?
never-ending
Yes.
laundry.
Yes.
And yes, using good, cleaners that make your clothes smell good, but don't have bad chemicals in them. That's always been a struggle.
All right, terrific. Last question for you. Who or what has been the key to your success?
Oh, my goodness. I've always had a good work ethic. My parents were fabulous and supportive and kind of made my sisters and I feel that we could do what we wanted to do. So I appreciate you saying the success. I think that you get certain advantages when you're young, whether it's, family, genetics, environment, and I think it's what you do with it that really counts and what's important to you, and not forget, to give back and try to do, good things. So that's what I try to do.
Ellen, this has been terrific. You've given us much to think about and some great advice.
Thank you.
And so thanks again to Ellen Deutsch Harrison for helping us take a healthy look at the health and wellness market, including the best ways for all of us to exercise caution and become educated consumers. Thanks also to our show's producer, Adrian Stoller, and WRHU audio engineer, John Mullen, for your support. Be sure to tune in each week on the radio and online to WRHU 88.7 FM, Hofstra University, for a new episode of Inside the Z-Suite, or catch up with our show wherever you enjoy your podcasts. For more information about this program and the Zarb School of Business, please visit hofstra.edu/business. Until next time, I'm Janet Lenahan from Inside the Z-Suite.